Well, 24 became 12 here tonight at Shelbourne Park, but that really doesn't tell the full story. Sensational racing once again in the BoyleSports Irish Greyhound Derby, and Coolavani Hoffa once again announced himself as perhaps the dog to beat, although in hindsight, we've seen the semi-final draw. It's pretty hot. I'm as always joined by Kevin Hennessy. Kevin, firstly, 4 wonderful heats tonight. It's a derby that just keeps on delivering.
It does, and we have really everything. You know, there's 3 ladies left in it. I know we had Susie last year, and obviously she took the headlines, but there's 3 bitches left, and it's not too many derbies that I can remember where you've 3 of the remaining 12 like counting for bitches. But it just goes to show the calibre of ladies we have in Ireland at the moment. But you're spot on, Ian. Coolavani Hoffa took our breath away again. He did so in the second round, and he was flawless again tonight. He absolutely catapulted from the boxes, and the race was over in a matter of strides. A very good race over in a matter of strides. So look, if he can repeat that, he'll probably have to, looking at the semi-finals. But he was just the icing on the cake. There was plenty more to mention him behind, and I'm sure we've plenty of time to go through them all here now.
Yeah, we do. A few minutes anyway. We'll start with the opening heat, because where else would you start? Yeah. Ballymacfin, Romeo Magico, Tullig Raven, Boccos Budson were the big 4 in the betting. Didn't quite happen that way. Ballymacfin did everything right you'd expect a favourite to do. He popped out, led into the corner, and even then he still had to work hard to beat a certain Skywalker Barry, who was sort of like a phoenix from the flames here tonight. It was the old Skywalker Barry, big run from him, and Gort Kelly Nestor back in third. Just didn't happen for Romeo Magico. Showed great pace into the third bend, eased up at that point. Boccos Budson missed the kick, and all of a sudden it looked like Graham Holland was going to have a shocker of a night. Now, as it was, CryptoPunk later qualified, but to lose Romeo Magico and Boccos Budson was a big blow. And Tullig Raven never really, he turned fourth but could never really get into a position where he could strike. And in the end, it was Ballymacfin. It was pretty comfortable for him, but Skywalker Barry was still on his heels off the final turn, and 29.59, a good victory, but there was more fireworks to come in later heats. Yeah, look,
when this heat went on, you were sort of left scratching your head what it was going to be like for the rest of the night. There were 3 huge names to go out: Tullig Raven, Romeo Magico, and also Boccos Budson.
And the clock sort of it didn't really stack up. You were going, well, why is he only doing that time with the run that he got? But maybe it's just one of those runs.
Yeah, no, and he's a young dog. Like, I'd expect him to keep coming forward. I spoke to Shane over the far side. He did tie up a little bit. You can see off the last bend he came a little bit wide, took Skywalker Barry's line. He obviously got a little bit tired, but he's a young dog, and we're 4 rounds into this, so I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they freshen him up a little bit for tonight to get him out of the box that little bit quicker. It worked, so I wouldn't be that concerned. He's got a great makeup in the semi-final next week. I definitely could see him lining up in the final, but Connections will be looking to get over next week first. But he done everything right tonight. You could feel for so many Connections here, because down the back straight, Magico was flying, Tullig Raven was in a reasonably good position, making ground. They were coming at the wrong time. It just seemed like there was nearly 4 dogs trying to fight for the same line into the third bend. As a result, it was Gort Kelly Nestor and Skywalker Barry who were able to assert at that point. And Skywalker Barry, I think we said it here maybe after the second round, that he was just starting to flash a little bit of his old self, very much like Explosive Boy. Running styles have changed. Like, Skywalker Barry in his early career was known for that awesome early pace. This Barry was coming from off the pace, and he run down Ballymacfin. So if you're going to, in one hand, credit to the young dog and be very impressed with him, you'd have to say Skywalker Barry, the running he did, he was only beaten 3 parts of a length or a length of the line, so a very good run. And Gort Kelly Nestor, Andrew.
Yeah, I have to mention, I was going to say, would you give Andy Murray a dog? Like, his second Derby final, or his second Derby semi-finalist, of course it is with Gort Kelly Nestor. Once again, he missed out by a length last year, and we know that he's got the easier draw in the second semi-final. So who's to say he mightn't just make up for last week, or last year, should I say?
He's getting some tune out of him. Like, he really is. He disappointed me in the first round. I tipped him up. I fancied him. I was a little bit disappointed with that run, but ever since then, the run behind Hoffa, the run tonight, he's in the semi-final, and all 12 of the qualifiers are there on merit. That is worth saying. Every single one of them had to battle to get here. Yes, there's been unlucky stories throughout, but you have to make your own luck sometimes, and all 12 have on their night. But Gort Kelly Nestor, a brilliant greyhound, brilliant Connections, a brilliant story, and hopefully he can go one better and line up in the final in 2 weeks' time.
Well, as you said, the first 3 home, Coolavani, Ballymacfin, should I say, Skywalker Barry and Gort Kelly Nestor were first, second and third around the corner. That's where they stayed, and they did everything right in the contest, and they're in the Derby semi-final as a result. On to the second heat. This was a slightly different affair. Coolavani Hoffa was hot favourite, although went sort of silly prices now tonight. Like, he didn't go off as short as I personally thought he should have, given the fact that the heat lacked early speed, with the exception of a certain Coolvenny Hoffa, who did 16.88 off a 3.39, 29.24. I'm back, lads. I'm Derby favourite for a reason. This was me in my prime. This was me in my pomp, and it's going to take a hell of a dog to beat me.
Yeah, look, speaking to Damien before the semi-final draw, he was as short as 13 to 8. By the time this comes out, and after seeing the
He was
semi-final,
13 to 8 for about 4 minutes,
yeah,
basically.
I'd say that he might be a shade bigger by the time you're watching this, but it was a scintillating performance. The part that impressed me the most, I said it to you sort of off air last week, and I said it on this, I suppose. If I was on Hoffa last week, I was a little bit disappointed. Not necessarily the fact he got beaten, but beaten in the clock and what he was doing to the third bend. So to me, he didn't come home well.
Okay, I put you right, though, in fairness.
He didn't come home particularly well. What I liked about him tonight was, you look at that race, Hoodoo Brown, Callaway Masters, we spoke about those dogs over a trip, Savannah Hero, they never made an impression. Like, I know they were out the back door, but they never made an impression. It just tells you how good the dog in front was doing. Like, obviously looking at the clock, 16.88, 29.24, it doesn't take a genius to say how good it was, but it just was, when you see those calibre dogs just not making any ground up, it just goes to show how good the lad in front is.
After Graham Holland's disaster in the opening heat, he would have been delighted to see the run of Crypto Punk. This is a dog that's just sort of tiptoeing along. He hasn't won a heat of the Derby, but you can't say he's run a bad race at all. He ran so well the last 2 weeks, and then tonight, again, another probably career best display from him, always second, and really had to dig in, because Vincenzo was challenging him into the third bend, forced him to check his stride. As it was, Vincenzo was headed briefly, I'd say, by Callaway Masters, and came roaring back to qualify. He looks like a dog who had a hell of a 600-yard run, but Crypto Punk first, a deserving qualifier for a certain Simon Taylor and Graham Holland. They won the Derby in 2020 with New Taylor as a combination. Who knows?
Yeah, no, very much. Like, and this lad showed lovely early, didn't he? Now, I know the race probably wasn't blessed with early speed on his inside, but after about 5 strides, he really rocketed into the corner. He tracked Hoffa, and like, when the dog in front is doing 29.24, you'd expect the lad in second to sort of fall off. He didn't. He knuckled down. I know he's probably a couple of lengths back in second, but at the same time, it was a very, very good run. He has 29.55 done already in the Derby. He was probably doing similar to that tonight. Again, I think that was a very, very good run. I think he's one that's probably doesn't have the most sexiest profile and is probably a fancy price. He's in a real tough draw next week. If he can come through that, it'll be a real feather in his cap, but take nothing away from his performance tonight. Vincenzo, on the other hand, yes, a little bit unfortunate. He got cut off at the third bend. I had him out.
Also took a bump at the corner as well, just off Crypto Punk at that point, and it cost him momentum as well. Like, if the bare lines of form, I think it's better than that.
Oh yeah, like, I don't think, what was he beaten by Hoffa tonight? Probably 6 or 7 lengths. I don't think he's a 7 lengths worse off dog than Hoffa by any means. I think he's far better than that. But I think in every round of a Derby, the Derby winner goes through a night of adversity, and tonight could have been his night, because up the home straight I thought he was out, like, because he was ahead of Callaway Masters. He lost his ground. He was definitely behind him with 10 or 15 yards to go to the line, and like, Callaway Masters, a 5.75 yard dog, to get back up and chin him just on the line. We could be looking back in 2 weeks' time and saying that's the night that this dog won the Derby. I will say one thing: I saw the photo finish myself. I feel for Callaway Masters and the connections.
I was going to say, you hate for a dog to lose out by a short head in the semi-finals or quarter-finals of Derby, and it was a short head.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen a shorter head. So like, it just goes to show, like, it was the width of a coin between the two dogs, you know. So on one side you have the elation, and in fairness, on the basis of the race, I think Vincenzo deserved his qualifying place. So yeah, fair play to connections.
We'll move on to Heat 3 because this featured Mary's wedding. Keeping it in the family, having seen Ballymac Finn win the opening heat, his litter sister Mary's wedding coming home in front in Heat 3. Here Born Warrior was uber impressive to the third bend, but once again he's just vulnerable from that point. He drifts off the last bend and just doesn't find an awful lot up the home straight, but he ran a big race in defeat. But this was about Mary's wedding. As fast as Born Warrior was going, he couldn't shake her off. She drew close around those bottom 2 bends, and when the gap opened, she was there and she just charged up that home straight. She's a very good winner for Tamara Butler and Keelan McGee. And Droopy's nice one also caught the eye. He looks like a bitch that really would do a 5.75 yard, 600 yard run. She flew into the escape. But the 2 ladies qualified, and splitting the pair was Born Warrior. they're three that could certainly still have a big say in this derby.
Yeah, very much. Like Marie's Wedding done absolutely nothing wrong. The opportunity was there for her, and that's what you want to see. You want to see a greyhound go and capitalise on the opportunity, and she did with a plum. She really knuckled down to Hunter. She's running really, really well. Another one, I think it was the first round, it was the first or the second round. There was a night there I was a little bit disappointed with her. I can't remember which night, but in the last 2 weeks in particular, she's really caught the eye. Last week she came home like a steam train. Tonight she'd done similar. Obviously the dog in front probably not staying it out the best, but take nothing away from Born Warrior. Like he's running 570 yards, isn't he? Like with the lines he takes, he's not running a 550. He's running 560 or 570 yards. It's unfortunate he runs so wide. Whatever about the first bend, but throwing it away off the last bend, you can't really afford to do that. But
you want to be putting a bit of lead in his left side, like
yeah,
in the left
in
side
way,
of his jacket or something. Just to
might be
keep
a bad
him in
idea.
a bit, you know.
Yeah, if it would work. But yeah, look. At the same time, you'd be saying most nights he's going to be in front. However, we know the draw for next week. We keep talking about it. He'll have to get it right at the boxes next week, won't he? He hasn't. None of them will have an inch to give away next week.
It's simple next week. If he doesn't lead, he's struggling to qualify.
You would imagine so, yeah. Marie's Wedding and Droopy's Nice One, they're both in the other semi-final. It's mad to say, but you could easily line up with 2 or 3 bitches in the final next week. That's how mad the draw has been.
And it was so crazy last year, a November 20 bitch or November 19 bitch winning it,
time, yeah.
And here we are, November 20 bitch a year later, Mary's Wedding, and she really is charging. That was her first win in the Derby, and who knows, may well not be her last. Moving on to the final heat, and here this was one of those heats where last week we saw some massive moves in the betting market. You know, we did see a few tonight as well, but Explosive Boy, I'm not sure, I haven't seen the official SPs, but from where I was looking, I think he would have started favourite.
Yeah.
You can see why he's in red, and people think he's going to have that flyer and whatnot, but Callaway Pro-Am, this young pretender, you know, he made it 9 from 12 tonight, and it's easy to see why. A natural starter, showed tremendous early speed, a really fluent galloper down the back straight, just did everything right, and yet he has to really cling on because a certain aeroplane called Crafty Kokoro comes from out of the clouds. I think you and me both have an opinion. This Derby could yet fall in her lap, and you know, that's not to say that she wouldn't have earned it, because she is immensely fast. But let's start with Callaway Pro-Am, because when it comes down to it, he won, and he's still one of the leading fancies for Derby glory. Yeah,
look, he's had 12 races in tonight was his 12th ever race. He's run through a Red Mills in Kilkenny, and now he's run through 4 rounds of a Derby, and he's only ever been out of the first 2 once in his life. It just goes to show you. I think it's, I'm not insulting anyone by saying it, the dog, since he's moved to Owen, he's or for whatever reason, he's just flying to the corner.
His brother did 28.39 the first race tonight
yeah.
for Liam Peacock, so he's not doing too bad either.
No, and that's not me saying anything about Liam at all. I just mean his running style for me has changed. When he was with Liam, or in his early part of his career, I thought he was more of an all-rounder. I thought 550, 575, 600 would have been no problem to him at all. But for whatever reason, in the last 6 weeks, he's just flying to the corner faster than I gave him, I suppose, credit for. And he's a real player, isn't he? Like, Owen loves these. Like, we seen him with Pistana, we saw him with Susie. He's well able to get them to just take off to the third bend. And this lad has gone under the radar. We spoke about him a little bit in the earlier rounds. I won't lie, I'm a massive fan of him. If you ask me coming into the Derby, or even after the first or second round, did I think he'd win a Derby? I wouldn't have, as much an all of a fan.
I think my exact words after the first round were, good run for Callaway Pro, and when he gets knocked out, he'll be a juvenile Derby challenger.
Yeah, exactly. And I spoke to Owen over the far side for fans, and he said to me, well, I'm sure he'll have to have a chat with Dennis, but he sort of said to me, regardless what happens next week, he doesn't necessarily think he'll go for the Puppy Derby now, but he's wonderful pace to the third bend, and so far in the Derby, he's the only dog that's been able to match Hoffa to the third bend. And if you did have Hoffa backed, you didn't really want to see him in the same semi-final. Now you have Born Warrior, you have Callaway Pro-Am and Hoffa all in the one race. So yeah, look, a lovely pup, going the right way, and is definitely a player in this Derby.
We better mention Crafty Kokoro.
Yeah.
You know, she's not a bad type. The Corn Cullen champion. It's funny, the back end of last year, the whole world was talking about this lady. Like, they could have sold her to Australia 15 times over. And they said, no, we're going to hold on to her. I think that could pay dividends. She's some sensational lady. To be beaten tonight is, you know, what's she only beaten? About a neck? A head or a neck. You know, 29.41. You know, it was just stunning. You know, stunning. She's just absolutely flying. Now, we know she's in the hot heat, but it'll probably suit her.
Yeah.
You know, they'll all be off in front of her, and she'll start to gather her pace down the back straight. And if she gets a clear run around the bottom 2 bends, with all the wide runners in it, she may well do. She could very easily be in a Derby final.
Yeah, I wouldn't like to be laying her now to qualify. If I was connected to her, I would have wanted her in that semi-final. Being honest about it, with like Callaway Pro-Am and Hoffa and obviously Born Warrior in it, like only one of them can lead. Now maybe you could say the two of them could go neck and neck, but even if they do, we saw what happened when Callaway Pro-Am and Hoffa went neck and neck last week. They sort of cut each other's throats, and the heat was won in 29.76. So even worst case scenario, if two of them do go neck and neck, they could take the legs off each other. I think it's set up for her. I think she's going to be a massive player in that semi-final. But look, I'm obviously very good friends with Peter and Shane, so I've tried to not be biased throughout these, and I'll say
you're failing badly.
I tried throughout the earlier rounds, but in fairness to the lads, and I'll be honest, I've said it to them, I didn't give them much chance of her winning this Derby for every round gone. I just thought she didn't have enough early to keep tabs on some of the better early pacers, but she's the only real out and out stayer left.
Is Noelle keeping them grounded, or are they keeping Noelle grounded?
Oh, I think Noelle is definitely at the head of the table there. I think Noelle is doing a great job, and look, they're brilliant, and she's doing unbelievable. I think she's surpassing even what the lads could have expected her to do. But look, they're still in a semi-final. The dream is still alive, and I, for the first time in it, like if I was connected to her, I'm starting to believe, because come semi-final night and final night, she trapped much better tonight. I don't know what her section was tonight, but I thought now from watching it live that she trapped an awful lot better. If she could do that most nights, and there is a little bit of bother, and she does turn fourth like she did tonight, game on. You wouldn't like her coming behind you.
No, I'll tell you what, if she is third, like let's say you have the third dog entering the back straight in the semi-finals, you know you're cooked, like, you know. Explosive Boy, it wasn't the best we've seen. Explosive Boy, but I'll tell you what, he really dug in, showed his strength. This is the strength that we're talking about now in his mature years, because bullet from a gun, like we spoke of the heartbreak with Callaway Masters, bullet from a gun, the connections are absolutely living the dream, and to be picked up as late as they were must be crushing for them. But Explosive Boy, the reigning dog of the year, and he still has a card or two up his sleeve. He's still there, he's still pitching. Now we know he's in the hot heat again. He'll want to be doing everything right, but God, what a remarkable dog to own.
Yeah, look, I'm a massive fan of this dog. I've always been a massive fan of him. I think he's the complete greyhound. I know everyone will say, like, look at what he's won, and it's going to be funny to say this, but he actually could have even won more. He if he was a Derby winner last year, I don't think anyone could have begrudged him at that. Like,
he was a hot favourite for the Kirby as
well.
Of course,
exactly. He's a dog that actually could have won more on top of what he has won, which just sort of tells you how good of a greyhound he is. Like, he's won over 80,000 euros in prize money. He could have easily doubled it. So that's the calibre dog. It was a tale of two races for me for Explosive Boy. It was hard sort of watching him getting outpaced so badly by Kokoro down the back straight. Like, she just dragged him from 2 to 3. Now but she probably do that the most. Exactly. But it's still just a little bit hard to see for a dog that like Explosive Boy. But then you see just the class of him coming through up the home straight when he had to dig in and he had to dig deep. Whether he'd have done that as a younger dog, I had me doubts, but he's an older, tougher dog now, stronger dog now, and he was able to get up and qualify exactly like you said. Brendan Manson has got some spin out, bullet from a gun. He done everything right to qualify tonight. There was nothing more he could have done. He left everything he had on the track, and unfortunately he just had dog of the year coming from behind him and just getting up to pip him.
Yeah. Let's not go too deep into the two semi-finals. Let's just say that they're interesting. They're up there online, and they're going to have a strong bearing on the destination of this derby. This is the point where I ask you, what's going to win
it? Look, Coulivan Hoff is around the 7-4 mark. I wouldn't be backing him at that price.
Just name the bitch.
I do. I'll give Crafty Kokoro a massive chance, and genuinely, I can honestly say it. It's not just because I'm pals with the lads. For the first time tonight, it's just dawned on me that, like, she's the only stayer left. I think there is definitely a strong chance that she turns maybe fourth off the back straight most nights, and if she's within 5 or 6, watch out, especially given there's so many wides as well left. Last week, when she got up the inside of Beach Avenue, they all drifted off, left her the ocean to come up the inside. Same thing happened tonight, and if it happens again, we know she'll capitalise.
Yeah, to call her stairs almost during an injustice, though. The pace she's showing. Yeah. I know she's won a Cork Cullen, she always looked like she'd be a stayer. The pace she's showing is just pure devastating bend pace as well. I still think Coulivan Hoff is probably the dog to beat, but he will probably face a tougher task in the semi-final than he will in the final.
Right.
And if he does qualify, I think you could find things would open up a little bit for him in the final, because I can't see how the final would be any tougher for him.
Yeah.
It may well be a hotter contest, but I don't know how it can be as
I
tough
agree.
for him. Yeah, Crafty Kokoro, I wouldn't mind seeing her win. I
You have a
must
few
say.
quid each way
I
on
do,
her anyway,
but
so
sure,
you're all right.
that's the way it goes. Listen, we're down to the final 12 in the BoyleSports Irish Greyhound Derby. We're no closer to really knowing what's going to win it, although we do know what's going to come from the final 12. Join us next week when we'll be taking a look at those two semi-finals and looking forward to a wonderful final of the BoyleSports Irish Greyhound Derby.